Good morning, everyone. My name is James Owen. I'm the chair of the Media and Community Recognition Committee of the Human Relations Commission of the City of Fort Collins. Quite a mouthful. I'm going to be your host this morning, and welcome to the annual Human Relations Awards breakfast. There are several dignitaries here, and I will invite the chair of the Human Relations Commission, Mr. Myles Crane, to come and do the official opening of this event.
That was James Owen, and James is the chair of the Media and Recognition Committee of the Human Relations Commission. And he's the one, together with other members on the Human Relations and the Women's Commission, who jointly organized and put this whole thing together today. The Human Relations Commission has been having these awards for about 30 years now. But what we're also very proud about is the Human Relations Commission, or some name close to it, was founded 49 years ago. So next year we're looking forward to one very big 50th celebration. Okay, with that, I would like to introduce the mayor. Mayor Karen Wyckonaut is a 37-year resident of Fort Collins. She was elected mayor in 2011 after serving 8 years on city council. We congratulate her on winning her mayoral election again. And prior to moving to Fort Collins from Wisconsin in 1974, Mayor Wyckonaut earned her bachelor's degree in secondary education. She has taught in both Wisconsin and Colorado school districts. She is a dedicated advocate of human rights and equality in the treatment of women. And we're thrilled to have her here today. Without further ado, please welcome Mayor Karen Wyckonaut.
Good morning, everyone. What a glorious day to live and work and play and be part of Fort Collins. It's a pleasure and a privilege always to support the Human Relations Commission as we recognize the outstanding individuals and the groups nominated for the 2013 Human Relations Award and the Women's Commission Marcella N. Wood Award. For over 30 years, the Fort Collins Human Relations Commission has sponsored the Human Relations Award to celebrate those in our community who promote acceptance and respect diversity. In many cases, the nominees today have been volunteers in the community for many years and in many different venues. I would like to begin by congratulating those nominees and applaud you for your volunteer work in our community. Being nominated is truly an honor, and for you, that ongoing commitment in advancing the cause of human dignity in the Fort Collins community. Thank you for that. We want Fort Collins to be a welcoming community for the people of all races, all ethnicities, religions, ages, generations, genders, and gender expression, now and well into the future. Reaching across those barriers requires that we're ever vigilant. Your work and your commitment to raise the awareness of for all of us in the community still has work that has to be done. Thank you for giving that time and your volunteering. And to my friends at the Human Relations Commission, thank you for reaching out to the public, for putting on this event and continuing to discuss the critical quality of life issues within the community in order to bring forward all diverse views. Before I close, I need to recognize a few individuals. First of all, on behalf of the City of Fort Collins, thank you to the Human Relations Commission, the chair and the vice chair, Myles Crane and James Lesko. Did I see James?
No, he hasn't been able to make it.
Okay. And a special thank you of appreciation to James Owen for the chair of this event and the Media and Community Recognition Committee who were in charge of planning and organizing the event. And of course, a special thank you to our friends at the Women's Commission and all the nominees for the Marcella N. Wood Award. In particular, we need to recognize Ms. Leah Hansen and Mariah Waden Osborne, chair and the vice chair of the Women's Commission. for their work in bringing issues and concerns for women to the forefront. I'm extremely appreciative of the guests in attendance today, including the past nominees and the recipients of the Human Relations Award and the Marcella N. Wood Award, who turned out to support this year's nominees. We all need to be thankful to the people who were nominated. Without your thoughtfulness, we would not have the opportunity to recognize the individuals deserving of this award. So those of you who brought nominations forward, thank you, and I know that you'll continue to do that. And last of all, I'd like to thank today's nominees for your ongoing commitment to recognizing and advancing the cause of human dignity in the city of Fort Collins. Each of you has truly earned and are deserving of this award. So congratulations on your nomination, and really, from Fort Collins, the city of Fort Collins, thank you for your work within the community to keep us as one of the best places to live in America. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for coming. Thank you, Mayor Weiganot, for supporting the Human Relations Commission and the breakfast. Thank you, Myles and James, for putting your diligent work for this great event. So my name is Faith Sternleib. I'm a new commissioner for the Human Relations Commission, and I'm honored to be here and very privileged to announce our keynote speaker, Laura Frank, who traveled very early and far from south of Denver to be here with us today. So Laura Frank is the Vice President of News at Rocky Mountain PBS. She is the founder and executive director of iNews, the new public service journalism arm of Rocky Mountain PBS. Laura is a Denver native whose work has been recognized in both broadcast and print, including a top 10 Pulitzer finalist and an Emmy Award for public television documentary production. She was an investigative reporter at Rocky Mountain News, and her research-based reporting has helped change lives and laws. So please help me welcome Laura Frank.
Thank you all for having me. I am just honored. Have you read about the background of the people we're honoring here today? It's fantastic. As she said, I'm from iNews, which is the new public service journalism arm of Rocky Mountain PBS. And what we do is try to get at those stories of statewide importance and local impact that other news organizations find difficult to do by themselves. How many people have noticed something going on with journalism in their community, across the state, across the country? You all know about that. What we're trying to do at iNews, at Rocky Mountain PBS, thank you, is get at some of those important stories that otherwise wouldn't be done, and we share them with other media. So here are some examples of the kinds of stories that we've done at iNews. We work with other media, so you can see some examples. The Denver Post came to us and said, something strange is going on with agriculture tax breaks, and we helped them investigate it and could see the pattern by looking at all the data from assessors' offices and saw that movie stars and contractors are, not contractors, what am I trying to say? Developers were getting the tax breaks that were supposed to be going to farmers and ranchers. We helped Colorado Public Radio find that the law in Colorado requires doctors to report payments they get from pharmaceutical companies, but not all of them were doing that. And after we helped them report that, more doctors started doing that, and then patients could figure out how to interpret advice they were getting from their doctors if they were already also being paid by the drug companies. You can see a couple more examples. We helped reveal that some schools, some universities were not reporting all the assaults that were happening on campus as they were required to do by law. After that story, they started working together to do more to protect students. We looked at K through 12 online schools and found that tax dollars, millions in tax dollars were going to these schools, but half the students were washing out and then being sent back to traditional schools that had already lost the money they would have gotten to educate them and didn't get the money when they came back. This was something that really people in northern Colorado reacted to. We talked about people who were living in nursing homes but could live independently if there were the places for them to live in affordable, accessible housing units. And we could tell every single county in the state how many people they had in nursing homes, how many of those people wanted to live independently, and how many affordable, accessible housing units the state knew about in each county. So you would see our work in the Coloradoan. You would hear it on public radio. So we work with media throughout the state. As you can see from this map, it's just about every daily newspaper in the state, other public media, public radio, KUNC, Colorado Public Radio. We try to get these stories to where you already are looking for your news. Our most recent report is called Losing Ground. And this looks at growing disparity among races in Colorado. So we started looking at child poverty. And do you remember last year there was a story about how child poverty in Colorado has just exploded? And we started trying to analyze that. So my team of investigative reporters has a lot of expertise in analyzing data. And some of you may have been at the gathering we had to talk about losing ground at the university, which was sponsored by the Vice President's office here. Was anybody there? I know you guys were. Anybody else? Okay, then we won't, okay. This won't be a repeat for any of you then. We started looking at this and we found that the childhood poverty increases could all be attributed to children of color. The increases were falling on the shoulders of African American and Latino children, almost the entire increase. So we started looking at other things. We started going back in time and trying to see if that had been true in the last census and the census before that. And that launched us on this odyssey, really, of trying to figure out what was happening in some of the key measures of social progress in Colorado for African American and Latino residents. And here's what we found. One of the most disturbing aspects for me was infant mortality. This was not census data, this was other data that we pulled together. But when you looked at infant mortality, and that's when a child dies before his or her first birthday, African American children in Colorado were 3 times more likely to die before their first birthday than white babies. And Latino babies were 2/3 more likely to die. We looked at college graduation, and you can kind of see what we were seeing in these trends were, we went all the way back to the time of the civil rights movement, and you could see the disparity was bad then. Some of you can remember that. Some of you are too young, I can see that. But disparity was bad, and then it started to get better. The gap started to narrow, and then something happened. We could see this pattern. Something began to happen in the 80s and the 90s where the gap started growing again. You can see what happened to the college gap. The top graphic is Colorado. And you can see where the gaps were. In that first line is 1960. The last line is 2010. You can see that the gap just keeps getting bigger and bigger. In fact, the gap in college graduation rates in Colorado is the worst in the nation. Yeah, wow. High school was a better picture. This was maybe one of the brighter spots that we found. You can see that in 1960, just over half, 55% of white adults had a high school diploma. It was about 30% for blacks and 18% for Latinos. By 2010, that had grown to 95% of whites and 86% of blacks and 65% of Latinos. So the gaps, I mean, there's still a gap, but it hasn't grown the way some of these other things have grown. So I'm sorry to tell you, that's as good as the news gets, because the other gaps are worse. When you look at poverty, a black or Latino resident of Colorado is almost 3 times as likely to live in poverty as a white resident. And I see some of you taking notes. You don't have to do that because you can have all of this information. It's on our website. There's an ebook that we can, I can tell you how to download. You can have all of this information. And in fact, these fancy graphics are right up there if you want to have them for yourself. The home ownership gap, you know, we heard a lot about this in the news related to, related to the recession. But as you can see, the gaps were growing long before the major recession hit. Median family income in 1970, an African American family made 73 cents for every dollar a white family made. By 2010, that was about 50 cents for every dollar. Yeah. For Latinos, it was 71 cents for every dollar a white family made. In 1970, by 2010, it was 60 cents. So you can see the direction that income is going. You'll also note, I mean, it's interesting to see how flat it is even for white families in Colorado. There from 2000 to 2010, it's pretty flat. But the other lines are definitely going down. And then we began to look at some of the reasons for this. What's behind it? So we looked at things like changes in the economy, changes in family structure, changes in policy, both at the local level and the national level. And in fact, on the website, there's a timeline of events, civil rights events, both in Colorado and nationally, that kind of helped get at some of what was happening over these times. So, for example, we stopped busing, affirmative action was essentially dismantled, those kinds of things. But what really struck us was how interrelated all of these things were. If anybody has any questions or comments, I'd be happy to talk with you about them, because this is something I know we've had. I mentioned the event here in late February, it was, talking about losing ground. We've had 7 of those kinds of events around the state, and this is a topic that I've found people really want to talk about. In fact, this past weekend, I made a presentation to the Colorado Black Roundtable, and they are actually pulling together groups of people, action groups, that want to take action on these different topics. So that's going to be really interesting to watch. And in the other events too, people started kind of coalescing around some of the issues that mattered to them. And so if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to take them. Yes, sir. Yes, the question was, did we look at the influence of immigration for the Latino data? And we did, because we wondered, well, is it all just a factor of immigration? And what we found was no. We could isolate the data and take out people who were born in another country. And when we did that, we still saw the same kinds of gaps. The gaps were slightly lower, but they were still present. So it wasn't just a factor of immigration. The question was, can we distinguish between situational and generational poverty? We could not, because we couldn't follow individuals through. These were just aggregated census data, but it would be really interesting. That's an excellent question. It would be interesting to watch. Yes, sir. Can we do it county by county? Can we track poverty county by county and city by city? We can track it over time for that county, for that city. We cannot track the individuals, so we don't know if it's the same just as a whole. Yes, we can. I cannot tell you off the top of my head what, for example, it said for Fort Collins, but it can be done. It can be done. Yes, sir. Well, what do we attribute these growing disparity gaps to? You know, it would be so nice if there were one thing, or even a set of things that we could say, all right, well, if we just change this policy, then the gaps would start to decrease again. But what really struck us, and if you read the bulk of the report, then what you see is this interconnectedness of so many factors at play. So one thing we did was bring in leaders from different minority communities to come talk about this with us in the very beginning, when we first analyzed the data before we did any reporting, because we wanted to know, what should we focus on? What kinds of questions should we be asking? And one thing they thought when they saw the data was, well, look at this. After the civil rights movement, things were getting better. And then maybe we got comfortable and things started changing. But that isn't even, that may be one small impact. The policies, when you sort of traced history, like I mentioned, and could see the changes in some of the policies that we had, like affirmative action or like busing, how much we were spending on education, the impact of spending on education seemed to mirror those. You could see changes in family structure, the percent of families headed by a single parent. This was something the Women's Commission was just talking about. Really started growing, and poverty went along with that. You know, there are much higher rates of poverty in single parent families than there are when there's two people with a job. So all of these things were combining together.
A point of clarification, it's not that Colorado is the worst in the country for college graduation. It is the worst in the country for college attainment. So if you compare, and they do this comparison with majority students and minority students in every state. And if you compare Colorado, we have the worst gap. So our diverse students are going to college at a worse rate compared to our white students than anywhere else in the country. But once they're there, they are graduating. There's still a gap, but it's not the worst in the country gap.
So the gap we measured was people at age 25 who had a degree, thank you. And they do that because some students, maybe some of you parents have noticed this, take longer than 4 years to go through college, so they wait till they're 25 to measure it. Yes, ma'am? I'm just curious. So the question was, have we researched the correlation between funding for higher education and what we saw here? To correlate it statistically, no, we have not. But certainly the interviews that we did, people keep bringing up this issue over and over. I'm sure it's something that you see at the university being brought up as a topic, because as dramatic as our numbers are nationally, comparatively speaking, for college degrees, the disparity in college degrees, we're pretty dramatic. We stand out in the country for what's happened to public funding of college education, which I'm sure folks in Fort Collins are very aware of. It includes community college. Is any college degree, so it's when you answer the questions for the US Census, it will say if you're 25 and older, do you have a college degree? So it includes everything, but very good question, thank you. Did you? The question is, can I predict the future? Yeah, no, the question was, given these trends, what are the predictions for the future? To some degree, yes. I mean, there is one very important point here, and the reason that these kinds of data are important to all of us, no matter where we are in life, what we're doing for a living. Colorado's workforce will be majority minority in 2 generations. So if children are less healthy, they're dying more, they're not getting high school or college degrees, they're in poverty, this is a very serious situation for the state. So that's the reason that we put as much effort as we did. This was 18 months of research and reporting. It was a 4-part series that ran in the Coloradoan here and in every daily newspaper but one in the state. It ran on public radio. In fact, it's still running on public radio. You can hear it on Colorado Public Radio today. We aired it on Rocky Mountain PBS all over the state. The reason we put so much effort into this is because it's a really big deal for the state. It impacts it impacts everything that we do. Yes, sir. So the question is, if we don't understand why these things are happening, how can we fix them? And we need more than anecdotal stories about it. And so the answer is yes. Some examples. After this story appeared, the state legislature said, okay, what we're going to do is start breaking down all the contracts that the state lets and analyzing, are we promoting these disparity gaps with the way that we're spending money? So that's one thing that's going on at the state legislature level. In the community level, as I mentioned, we had these 7, we've got one more scheduled, and then these others are coming up. We have these multiple public events where we bring people together, and they are actually beginning to take each issue point by point, break it apart, and try to address, all right, there are some policy things that have changed. Do we need to work to change those? There are some, individual level things in our communities that we want to change. What do we need to do that? And then there are things in between. So it's happening up here, and it's happening in our communities too. Yes, sir. And that's part of what makes this, okay, so what he said was there's this undeniable issue of racism in all of the data and the gaps that we're seeing. We were looking at we were wondering, could some of these be, is it social economic? Is it something else that we're not seeing? Is there some hidden thing here? So we looked at some of the data and pulled out, let's look at middle class people of different race. Do you still see the gaps? And we did. Again, they were smaller gaps, but you still saw the same pattern. So there's something at work there that needs addressing. And this is, one of the things, people working together, having discussions like this, talking about what it means for the future. It's exactly, please. So he's saying, is it pure race, or is there a factor of the effect of race mingled with education? Are kids not getting the right education? Do they not have the skills they need for the jobs? This goes to how complicated the whole thing was. Again, if you could just say, aha, here's the one thing it is, then we could solve it tomorrow, right? But they're all interconnected. Yes, sir. So she's pointing out there are some actual efforts out there that are making some progress. Bridges Out of Poverty is one example. I just want to say, if you are interested in furthering this conversation, getting involved in some way, if you go to RockyMountainPBS.org and click on Losing Ground, or inewsnetwork.org and click on Losing Ground, you can download an ebook that will give you the entire story. It looks like this. Yes, I know you're not supposed to print out ebooks, but I did. And in the back of it is what we call an engagement kit. And it has fact sheets and a discussion guide. If your service organization or book club wants to continue this kind of conversation, there are some materials that will help you do it. And one of them is a potential action guide that helps you get in touch with organizations who are working on this topic by topic. So we have that for you. And I have cards. You can see me afterwards. I'll give you one. Thank you so much.
Laura got up probably around 4 a.m. this morning to drive from southern Denver to get here around 6:15. And let's just give her another round of applause. That was excellent. Thank you, Laura. In the interest of efficiency, what we're going to do right now is ask all nominees to come right to the front here, and we'll take a picture of them, because after we're done here, chances are people will scatter. The various nominees, just please come forward. From Marcial L. and Wood Award, Jennifer Jones, Deidre Sullivan, the Child Safe and Poudre High School Student Council Organization, Frank Johnson from Police and Emergency Services. Please come to the front here, if you will. Paula Galloway and Tony Espinoza, Bonnie Shetler and Chuck Solano, and Danielle Saldanha and Louis Enrique Martinez. And without further ado, I'd like to bring James Owen up to talk about the awards process. James, thank you.
So the Human Relations Commission is always quite flexible in the way we do things. So we're going to ask you to bear with us as we now present the awards in a different way. But we will do the Human Relations Awards presentation first, followed by the women's, the Masil and Woods Award. And I am actually going to ask the awardees for last year's breakfast to help in presenting the certificates and the plaques. So, and the sequence of presentation for the Human Relations Award will be youth, followed by adult and senior, and then police and emergency services and organization. And at this point, I would like to invite Christine Hayes to come and introduce the nominees for the Youth Award. And can I also have Faith Stanley come and assist?
Good morning. I always enjoy giving out the Youth Award, and I was going to say that if you notice, in the last series of storms we've had, the sun always comes out. And so I always think that when we look at everything that's happening in our country and nationally, we see a lot of storms, and we're hoping that the sun always comes out. Well, the reason why I like presenting the Youth Award is because if you really know the young people in Fort Collins, you see a lot of sun coming out. And you know the future is in really great hands. It really is. And so I was going to tell you that there's a couple of things. First of all, our winners from last year, who were Pranaya Sate from Fort Collins High School and Connor Kelly from Fossil Ridge High School, couldn't be here today. May is a very, very busy time. And unfortunately, both of our nominees from Poudre High School can't be here today. They happen to be International Baccalaureate students, and if you don't know what that means, it means they start month-long testing today, and their 4-hour English test starts right now. They started at 8 o'clock in the morning, and they couldn't be here today. But I do want to tell you about both of the nominees. And I would like for George Osborne, the principal of Poudre High School, to please come up here so that he can be taking back some presents for them. One of our nominees, Danielle Saldanha, spent the last 4 years volunteering with Sustainable Schools International and works to create sustainable schools in Cambodia. She began her experience during her freshman year, doing mostly menial work, but today as a Poudre High School senior, she has formed an SSI group at Poudre, and she's now the leader in fundraising and in presenting information on why SSI is necessary. Her achievements in raising student and community awareness has made a significant impact on the lives of Cambodians, as well as inspiring community members to become involved. Our award recipient this year is Luis Enrique Martinez, or Kike, as he's known. He's an active community member by working with his Poudre High School Ambassadors group involving presentations on dating violence and suicide prevention, as well as helping younger students feel included and welcome within the school setting. He is also an active leader in the Hispanic Youth Promoting Excellence, or HYPE team, and he explains HYPE's mission as Hispanics and Latinos should use the values of their culture to overcome negative stereotypes and improve their image as well as that of our culture. He does just that while maintaining a challenging workload in honor classes. So even though they aren't here, could you please give a shout out to them so that they can hear you? And thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Osborne, for being here, and I'm going to bring James Owen back up for the Adult Award.
I'm going to ask Dr. Martin Carcassonne to assist with the recognition. So I'm not going to be as fluent in introducing the nominees because I just got their information. So could I please have Paula Galloway come to the front. She was nominated for this award in recognition for her work with Ignite Adaptive Sports. And she's been doing that since 2003. Paula is a web-based consultant, and issues of water quality are important to her, and she used those skills to help, one, not only to train kids with disability through Ignite, but also to develop the website and maintain the database for Ignite. Please join me in thanking Paula. This year's awardee is Tony Espinosa. Tony is a teacher at Puder High School, and she's been a community volunteer for the last 35 years, and I understand you've mentored over 1,000 individuals. That speaks volumes. This is in addition to his routine teaching. He volunteers at as well to do some training with other organizations to engage and help Hispanic students to achieve their very best. He has been recognized by the Hispanic community and has received a Hispanic Leadership Award for his work in the community. Thank you, and please join me in congratulating Tony. Thanks. Now I'd like to invite Dr. Mary Lyons to come and introduce the nominees for the Senior Awards.
Thank you, James. And it's a real honor for me as a senior to be the one who is going to tell you about our Senior Award nominees. And unfortunately, Sue Elliott, who was the winner last year, couldn't be with us, so thanks, Faith, for making the presentations. Our nominee, first nominee is Bonnie Shetler. Bonnie, can you come forward, please? So Bonnie was nominated because of her long-term commitment to the well-being of seniors, both as a volunteer and in her role as a psychologist in her private counseling practice in Fort Collins, which since 1980 has specialized in helping those with issues related to midlife and aging. She was a founder and board chair of the Elder Care Network of Northern Colorado, a volunteer organization dedicated to providing support for caregivers of the elderly. She was also a founder and recent board chair of the Foundation on Aging, another nonprofit organization with the aim of bringing community awareness to the unmet needs of those who are aging and providing solutions for them. Most recently, Bonnie has served on the Senior Transportation Coalition, which formed from the Silver Tsunami Community Conversations. Bonnie, congratulations on being nominated. So our senior awardee is Chuck Solano. And Chuck, if you'd come forward. Some of you may have remembered reading about Chuck in the Colorado last week. He was nominated because of his dedication to sharing the inspirational story of his life as a child of migrant farm workers to hundreds of people at the Museo d'Atres, a Fort Collins organization dedicated to the history of early Hispanic pioneers. Chuck is a longtime Fort Collins resident and current president of the Museo. As a youngster, Chuck worked with his family in the beet fields here, finally earning his GED when he joined the military and returned to Fort Collins as a barber. As he tells his life story at the Museo, he has inspired hundreds of children and adults. He speaks of the importance of education and how if one has the will to do better in his or her life, it's possible. And he teaches not to be afraid, to want more of life, and to find a way to give back, which he's done in spades. He's been active in this community in nearly a dozen organizations, and in fact was in the past a member of the Human Relations Commission. So congratulations, Chuck. So James, I'm not sure who's next, but I'll let you.
I'd like to invite Colleen Conway to come and present the nominees for the police and emergency services.
All right. We have one nominee for our police and emergency services that stood out, evidently, in the community, and it is Lieutenant Frankie Johnson. If you'll come up. Come on over. Nice to meet you. Okay. And would Lieutenant Chris Wolf please come up to do the presentation? He was our last year's awardee. Frankie Johnson is a lieutenant in the Colorado State University Police Department, and over the past 7 years has been a tireless advocate for a number of Colorado State University students and projects, including the Lieutenant Colonel John Mosley Student Athlete Mentoring Program, it's a long one, and the Donald W. Wilson Professional Mentoring Program. These programs are designed to help minority students excel by enhancing their leadership skills and sense of belonging while developing the tools they need to contribute to a global economy. Frankie is a visible role model for racial and ethnic minorities. Congratulations to you.
Now I would like to invite Ms. Preeti Sathe to present the organizational nominees and also invite the international community builders to help in recognizing those nominees.
Good morning. Thank you, Carol Miller. She's representing the International Community Builders, the award recipients for last year. We have nominations for 2 organizations. Child Safe. Child Safe is a nonprofit organization, and they're recognized for providing psychiatric services to members of the Northern Colorado community for almost 26 years. Child Safe is the only nonprofit serving the needs of abused children within Northern Colorado, and the services are free to the disadvantaged population. They serve approximately 600 individuals per year, and they provide services primarily to children 18 and under who are the victims of sex abuse. Finally, they also help families, support groups, and adult victims of childhood abuse. They also train families to provide support and mentoring to help heal the abused child. And Child Safe usually helps a clientele with and the lower income groups. So we would like to recognize representation from Child Safe. Okay. Faith, could you please accept the award on there? The organization 2013 award recipient for this year is the Poudre High School Student Council for their Feed Our Families food drive. The Poudre High School Student Council is recognized for their Feed Our Families food drive, which started in 2008. Through this program, they have served 1,500 families and provided 2 weeks worth of canned and fresh food to economically disadvantaged families. This program begins in early November and culminates in early December every year. They have been so successful that in 2012, in addition to feeding those in need from PHS, they were able to serve families from schools in North Fort Collins, Wellington, Bellevue, Livermore, and Laporte. The Student Council leads the charge in terms of coordinating the food drive. However, it's truly the whole school effort that encourages every student and staff members to take an active role. They collect food, organize, and distribute food in the community. They have also developed partnerships with local businesses, and they encourage customers to donate food items. This is truly a community-wide event. Congratulations.
Let's once again give a round of applause to the individuals that made the contributions known, that is, the individuals that actually nominated the nominees. That's probably the most important. And also recognize the nominees for what they've done in the community, truly working to make a difference. You've heard that some of them have gone back 30 plus years to doing this, and some are more recent. Each of them has made a contribution to improving the life of individuals in the community. And now I would like to invite the Women's Commission to present the Marcel N. Wood Award. Thank you.
So the Marcel N. Wood Award is given to members of our community who've made a great contribution to the lives of women within Fort Collins. And this year we have two wonderful nominees. Our first one couldn't join us this morning, but is Jennifer Jones. She's worked in the field of victim services since 2004. She started as an advocate at Crossroads Safe House, but she advanced to program manager and then found a niche in grant writing. She joined SAVA, as the Director of Development in August of 2011, and this past fall became the Executive Director. Under her short tenure as the Interim Executive Director and then the Executive Director, Jennifer has led the staff through a building relocation, the start of a capital campaign, and significant budget and organizational changes. So we'd like to congratulate Jennifer on her nomination. This year's winner is someone that I was lucky enough to meet within my first few weeks of moving to Fort Collins. Deirdre was a volunteer with the Pathways Past Poverty effort, which was a local effort that came out of some of the reporting that we heard about today. She was on the Child Care Access Committee and has been a passionate advocate for women's needs and for child care needs in the community. She served as the board chair for the Family Center, and when I talked to the executive director of the Family Center about her, one of the things that she said is, it's the only person she's ever met who purposely works only part-time so that she can volunteer in the community. Deirdre is a mother and a passionate advocate for childcare access and healthy living options within the community. She's a great team player who sets wonderful examples for others, especially because she's not afraid of challenging others to look through another lens and is always driven by compassion. Deirdre's involvement in the local community is the perfect example of how anyone can be a part of changing a community for the better when they put their mind to it. We'd like to congratulate Deirdre for making such a great contribution. I think they're taking a picture.
It's my pleasure to make the closing remarks for this event. It's kind of hard, so let me just start with a story. A few weeks ago, there was a story in the Colorado, and that was shortly followed by another one in the Collegian. I believe it may have been written by Kevin Dugan. And the story was about a young boy from the city of Philadelphia. He's an inner city kid who really didn't have a whole lot going for him. But on account of his brother, older brother, who unfortunately was lost due to inner city violence and other ways. He got in touch with a woman who ran an equine breeding operation and training. And because of that interaction, this student got in touch with his passion to work with and ride horses and achieve the impossible national honors in polo at high school, and is currently a student at CSU. And most of you know that CSU is a pretty mean polo team, and it's doing well nationally. The reason I bring that story up is because you've heard about individuals in our community who have, through different ways, made a difference. And it may be that you've touched the life of only one person, and that is significant. If your actions, your words, your advice can direct someone into a better life, that's extremely important. And some of you may have the advantage of being in charge of a large organization that can actually impact tens of thousands of people. It doesn't matter what it is. I encourage each and every one of you who was here to try and make a difference in the life of one person. You heard from Laura that there's a lot of work to be done. Each of us has a role to play in bridging those gaps. I want to thank the city leadership, the national leadership, all of you that came today to recognize the people in Fort Collins that are making a difference. This is not representative of everybody, but of the ones that we were told. So as you go home, think about what you can do, whether it's writing a letter, calling your elected officials, walking into a primary school, into an elementary school, into a senior citizen's home. Do what you can to make the lives of the people of Fort Collins, Larimer County, the state of Colorado, United States, the world better. Thank you.